Okay, here we are. Hello and welcome to the fourth installment of Premieres in Private Places with Collective Love Music. As you probably know by now, Premieres in Private Places was our reaction to our current circumstances, where we wanted to work with them, I suppose, not in spite of them. So we weren't trying to recreate a concert experience, but we wanted to do something that kind of responded to the restraints that we had on our being apart and that sort of thing. So Premieres in Private Places is a series of 5 audiovisual short form works in collaboration with composers around the world. And these video works started, we released the first one in June and they'll finish up in September. They're short form to cater to online behaviour patterns and free scored for those of us who don't have access to our regular instruments or spaces. And these are like fixed media works that are a project in themselves, so a creative reaction to these extraordinary circumstances. And today I'm talking to TINE SUREL LANGE, who has written us a piece called Rituals for Changing Times. And we're going to have a little chat about this piece. So would you like to introduce yourself and just say a little bit about where you are, what's been going on these past few months?
Yeah, so I am a composer and sound artist, and I'm based in the Arctic of northern Norway. And right now it's super stormy outside, and I'm in a very cool artist place called the Nixon Cooperative, where I'm doing a work stay. And it's this tiny fishing village super far into the ocean, and now it's very, very stormy. And actually, the signal of connection is kind of mirrored from a mountain down here. So I'm hoping for the best during this stormy weather. So I'm based here, and normally I travel a lot. Normally I'm at least 50-50 out in the world doing things, and then I kind of go here to be in solitude. But due to the situation, the balance has kind of been totally wrecked, and I'm just sitting here in solitude. But at least it's a very, very beautiful place. There's a lot of nature. There's the midnight sun in summer, and then there's a polar night in winter. So I'm definitely a summer person. So being here full time this summer with the midnight sun has been quite nice.
I can imagine, yeah. So the video for our piece, was that filmed nearby?
Yeah, no, it's filmed nearby my home, which is also up here in the Arctic, and so it's kind of the same landscape. So it is the real midnight sun, and we actually have tourists coming here, and they are asking, like in the summer, they come in the summer, and then they ask, when is the other sun coming up, like the midnight sun? There's stories of that, but it is one sun. It's just that it never sets. Just in case anyone is wondering. So you have this kind of magical where it goes down just below the ocean, if you are, of course, near the ocean, and then it just lingers there, and there's a sunset for many hours, and then it just goes up again. So you have this kind of golden light going on. But the day when I went to film this piece, of course, it was cloudy.
But it's really beautiful though, like the way the light is playing in the clouds. I think it's gorgeous.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so I decided to go for it anyway, because at least the sun was kind of looking through the clouds, and the clouds basically just made it more dramatic.
For sure. Must be a great place to be creative, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. But it's also like I tend to, like, I like to create being totally alone and not see people for many weeks, but I normally really enjoy going away and getting so many impressions, meeting people and collaborating. So of course it's been less of that. But I'm just really just working through, and my works get even weirder when I'm left alone for a long time. So
fantastic.
yeah.
So you said you really enjoy this kind of like interaction with people, but you also work, I've noticed, a lot with field recordings and that sort of thing, which probably comes from being in such beautiful places. How does your approach change when you are working with a corpus of material that you can manipulate, like in field recordings, and then working with performers like live, people who react differently, or like with our piece where you don't really know what we're going to send you? Like, does the piece kind of dictate the way that changes, or is it something that happens more planned, I suppose?
Just during your question, I had like 3 very different answers, and I'm like, oh, I want to answer this, and then this, and this.
Talk as much as you need.
Nice. Of course, like with the field recordings, it's basically that I'm just really interested in sound. So it doesn't really matter so much for me if it's from an instrument or from a beautiful nature, something making a sound, or if it's a metal bowl in a kitchen. It doesn't really matter for me. It just I'm really interested in sound, and for me, all sounds are interesting. So I only work with organic sounds. So I would never, or never say never, but of course I have made non-organic sounds, but it's just, for me, the material that's just out there is so vast. So I think I'll never be done with it. So I will never really feel the need for creating any sound, because there's just so much material here that I can work with. But of course, it's also colored by my surroundings, that there's not so many people here, so you can really engage with the nature and really find some cool sounds without so much other sounds happening at the same time.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
And does the kind of medium of like delivering the content shape your process? I suppose I was just thinking like the installation work that you've done, compared to something like this, which is very fixed media, designed to be kind of taken in a short amount of time. Whereas you might like sit and experience an installation, you might dip in and dip out, like this sort of thing. Like, how do you kind of approach these different formats, I suppose?
I think, well, because a lot of my works have so much concept around it, like there's a strong concept always going on, and it's always shaping the sound. And of course, how it's going to be sent is also part of that concept. And also you have this kind of like the concept is shaping the sound and kind of making me make choices based on concept instead of necessarily on how the sound is and how the sound possibly could be presented. So yeah, so for me, it's of course a different process, especially when you have musicians involved, that it's not just me communicating with myself and the speakers, but you actually have to find a way to communicate with performers. And I had this interest in not necessarily doing too much with the sound. I've also, when I do field recordings, I either I manipulate the sound a lot, or I don't do anything, basically. And with the instruments, I'm curious of finding a balance between communicating what I want and communicating what kind of the concept is, but also creating a space where the sound can be whatever it is. And so I don't want to be able to shape the sound too much. I want the sound to kind of shape me. And yeah.
And what about videos? I suppose I haven't really worked too much in kind of audiovisual works, and I'm curious about the way that the visual and the audio interact. So do they kind of emerge at the same time in your mind, or is it the sound is first, or you're inspired by a particular video? It's kind of a process that I don't know too much about, but I'd love to hear more.
So it's like, for me, the way you listen is highly colored by your surroundings. So it's always been very natural for me to work visual as well. So I've been making videos for a long time, and also working with visual material if it's more installation based. But I've always been very curious of kind of connecting the video with the sound, and again, maybe finding ways that the video also can shape how the sound is going to be. So I kind of like when there's other stuff deciding how the sound is going to be, and I kind of just try to lift the sound up a bit. So yes, so I really wanted to find a strong connection between sound and video, and been very fascinated by textures and lines in landscapes. In the same way, I've also been working quite a lot with dancers, and there's very much likeness to how a choreographer is working and a composer is working, where it's about communicating something that others will perform. So it kind of just got together in this. I suddenly got the urge. I have this, like, I randomly had the golden outfit that I have on in the video, the golden pants, and I thought, okay, I have to use them for something. And there was a midnight sun, and I thought, okay, I will create a ritual. And actually, I didn't know that I was going to use it for this work. But then when I saw the video and saw these movements, I thought, okay, here's something that is possible to use for communicating something for musicians. So this project is perfect for this, with this open forum. And so I basically just had to kind of study the movements and try to figure out how much can the sound be controlled by the movements, like how many factors is possible to kind of play after. So I had to try it myself, like, can I, because they're in my piece, there are legs and there are arms and they're moving. And I was like, okay, we have movement back and forth. We have one or several objects, but we also have if the objects are in a line or bended. So the last one I didn't use because I was like, okay, 2 things is enough. And so the whole piece was just kind of born from many different ideas. And yeah, and then it fitted for the project.
Yeah, I kind of experienced playing it as a bit of a meditation exercise in some ways. Like, there was this tension between trying to concentrate on the activity, like the instructions that you gave us, while focusing on the production of sound. And it was like quite an interesting prompt, I suppose, that I hadn't experienced before. So that really fit the name for me as well, this sort of ritual that we do in these crazy times. But yeah, it was like a really cool experience, actually.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And also you did, because you're an oboe player, and you did some crazy circular breathing that just fitted perfectly for this piece. But I had in mind that, okay, this is possibly going to be a bit hard for everyone that's not a string player. But I really liked how everyone in the ensemble found different ways to solve this piece, to create some sounds, and also with the percussion parts, which I did not see that sound file coming, and I loved it, and it kind of glued things together in a really nice way. So it was wonderful getting these different sound files, because the frame of the piece is quite loose, like it's not really fixed. So I did not know what I was going to get. And also, this piece would have been very, very different if you were sitting in the same room and was able to hear each other. And that really struck me when I got these sound files, that, okay, these people have no idea what's going on.
Absolutely,
and yeah, so there was like this. So I didn't know what I would get, and you didn't know what you were part of. And then all of us kind of see the work and be like, oh okay. So I kind of like this kind of unclearness of what's going to happen, both for the musicians, but also for myself.
Yeah. And it sort of, as much as maybe, like, classically trained musician like myself might possibly wish it doesn't, but these kind of open scoring, the instructions, for people who don't know, were things like, timbre changes, vibrato, like with different, like, degrees of wideness, and it tends to reveal something about yourself as you're playing it. So, like, without trying, some aspects of your personality will come through in these files, or things that you really love doing on your instrument. Timbral fingerings or bisbigliando, that sort of thing. Like, it's just an opportunity to yeah, just be a musician in these kind of ways that you might not always get a chance to be. So that's another interesting thing. And you wouldn't get that, as you said, if you were in the room with other people, because you're always trying to fit in, you're trained to do this. And yeah, it's a very interesting experience. All of these pieces have been super fun in that aspect, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you've been doing this project, and also with these very different videos. And I kind of like this. It's like a true a true piece of this time, with everyone just sitting all these places, and even like the premiere now is going to be online. But there's this kind of togetherness happening that is super nice.
Yeah.
Oh, but I like what you said about the personalities. I could definitely hear very clear personalities in the sound files. And I really got a sense of, okay, this person is more adventurous, or this person tends to kind of like this or this kind of sound. So it was really nice. I haven't met, like you are the, and Victor on the percussion is the only people I met in, oh yeah, I only met Victor in real life and you online. So, but so I have like these people that I don't know, but I kind of got a really nice getting to know them in the sound.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Is that something you feel doesn't always happen if you give a piece to a performer more in the real world? Like, particularly in an ensemble setting, I'm just thinking if you're sitting together, you might get to know the ensemble, but you don't necessarily get to know the individual performer.
And for me, especially since I live here in the Arctic, distances are quite far. So I'm really far away from Oslo, the capital of Norway. So if I was to drive and also be surviving that drive and had to sleep and eat, it would take me 3 days.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it is really far. So a lot of the time I'm kind of isolated up here. So in some ways it hadn't been such a change of, I always been doing a lot of rehearsals with musicians at Skype or FaceTime.
Yeah, okay.
So in some ways the situation now is not that different, but in the same way, normally I do meet the people, or at least like when you give the piece to someone, you kind of are there. But now I've given it the piece, and there's some of these people I don't know how they look like even. So there's a little difference there.
That's crazy. So would your routine, I suppose, hasn't changed too much in lockdown then? Like perhaps you experienced lockdown fairly similarly like as your life before, if you're so far away from things.
Yeah, but normally I'm maximum here for a month, and then I go somewhere and do a project. So I've been here now since March. I was stuck in the US when COVID happened, so it was an experience and a bit like traumatizing. So I've been doing no traveling since then.
Yeah.
But I've been quite fortunate to be able to do this kind of artist residencies a couple of hours from where I live. Because I was just missing this going somewhere and work very intensely. That's how I work. And so instead of going to another country, then I just drove some hours. So I think without that, I would not been able to work as much.
Yeah, I think we've all been experiencing the feeling of working in different places to usual, practicing in tiny rooms and all that. So yeah, I really like this sort of project for the fact that we get requests that are like, record this on your phone, like make sure it's, you know, not good quality or that sort of thing, which is perfect for the setups that we all have at home, which is, you know, very limited compared to what we would be recording if we were performing live. Yeah, is there anything else you want to say about this piece? Like, where does the name come from? Obviously, the changing times is quite obvious, but is there anything in the ritual element that
so as an artist, my work is quite colored by magical realism and mythology, and also a strong belief in the coming fall of mankind. So there's definitely some dark energies there. So I kind of just in everything that's happened, I wanted to create some kind of ritual, both for me or possibly for the performers or for the people who are listening to it. And also kind of like that, so it's a ritual for changing times. Like these are definitely changing times, and we don't know what will the change be. I think they will be better in some ways and it will be worse in some ways. But kind of there's this double-sidedness, because it's also a ritual for changing times, like a ritual you can perform to change the times. So I really like this kind of double-sided way of understanding the title. That's like super fitting for how I feel right now and for everything that's happening now.
Yeah, I never thought about that actually. That's perfect. Amazing. Your works are quite, I suppose, performative. Like even the audio visual ones that I've seen, like they're very, very dramatic. And when you're doing this with actual performers, kind of who've sent you recordings, like in Ritual, is the performativity kind of something you try to maintain through the liveness? Is there like a live quality that you try to maintain, or do you think is it kind of more in the package that gets put out as the fixed media? Like, what is the kind of mode of working with performers, I suppose, in these kind of settings?
For this piece, when I got the sound files, I of course had this kind of choice, like how much do I edit this? And I decided to only edit it the minimal, because I loved there was this kind of breathing and also this suddenly like some weird sounds happening where I don't know how that sound happened. I don't know if it's on purpose or not. So I just kind of kept it there, and I think that maintains the very organic sound of the piece. And also I kind of thought that, okay, this piece is perfect for this project, but also it could be performed at a stage later on. So I wanted to at least keep some similarities between this video and if it's going to be performed live. But I did had to do some kind of some intonation things, because this piece is so heavily focusing on timbre changes and minor pitch changes, a lot of the same pitches, and then with slow vibrato kind of moving around. But I had to go in and do a little adjusting there, because you guys were sitting in different rooms. So,
and I realized after I sent my piece in that I was at A440.
I was curious if you would notice or think about it now, because especially the oboe I had to put down a bit. But also I didn't think about, of course I should tell the musicians, okay, we are in 440 or 442.
I mean, it's something I haven't thought about.
The oboe was a bit So I did that of respect for the sound and for the piece and for the musicians. And it was a very strange experience. Like I really realized, okay, these people are sitting in solitude all over Europe and sending all these sound files. So I kind of created that togetherness a little bit.
It's quite a vulnerable thing, I think, to send someone that you don't know, like a video where you can hear yourself breathing and the kind of blips that come out of your instrument that you're like, I can't fix that now, you know. But the result is gorgeous. It's really nice. So thank you for such a great piece.
And thank you so much for performing it and for this super nice talk. I could talk forever, like I have so many oboe questions and everything, but I think now we know each other and are connected in these strange times, and can have other conversations at a different moment. So thank you so much.
So now we're going to play the piece. Perhaps you'd like to introduce it just as we sign off.
So this is Ritual for Changing Times, with my gold-clad legs and hands and the beautiful midnight sun up here in the north, played by these wonderful people in Love Music Collective.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.